You've looked at quite a few wheelchairs over the years now, Dad.
More than I ever wanted to be honest.
Do you still remember the first one?
Unfortunately, yes. I remember exactly what I got wrong.
What was it?
I was looking at the wheelchair instead of looking at myself.
I think that's probably what most people do.
Exactly. I was comparing wheelchairs before I'd worked out what I actually needed.
So you were looking for an answer before you really understood the problem.
That's exactly it.
So why did you buy the scooter?
Because I was frightened, if I'm honest.
And you wanted an answer quickly.
Exactly.
But it wasn't the answer.
No. Good scooter, wrong choice. What made this so difficult was that it all happened incredibly quickly. One day, I was working 16-hour shifts repairing heavy commercial vehicles. The next thing I knew, I was in hospital after a major heart attack and wondering whether I'd ever get my independence back. When I finally got home, I discovered I could barely get from my bed to the toilet without feeling as though I was going to fall over. To be honest, I was frightened. I wasn't sitting there calmly analysing mobility equipment. I was looking for a way to get my life back. So when I started looking at mobility scooters, it seemed completely logical. I couldn't walk very far. I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted some independence. A mobility scooter looked like the obvious answer.
And to be fair, there wasn't anything wrong with the scooter itself. It wasn't a cheap scooter, and it certainly wasn't a bad scooter. In fact, it was probably one of the best scooters you could have bought. The problem was that you were concentrating on one part of the day. You were thinking about getting to the supermarket, getting into town, getting out and about. What you weren't really thinking about was everything that had to happen before and after that journey. You still had to get from the bed to the scooter. You still had to get from the scooter into the supermarket. You still had to carry shopping around the shop. You still had to get home again. The scooter solved one problem brilliantly, but it didn't solve the whole problem.
And that's exactly when the penny dropped for me. I realised that getting to the scooter was actually more difficult than getting to the toilet. The scooter lived outside in the front garden. To use it, I first had to walk further than I was really capable of walking safely. Then, when I got to the supermarket, I discovered another problem. The scooter could get me there perfectly well, but it couldn't help me get around once I was inside. I still had to get off it and start walking around the shop with a basket. That's when I finally stopped looking at mobility scooters and wheelchairs as products and started looking at my actual day-to-day life.
And what was the answer? Because I think this is the point where a lot of people get stuck. They start comparing products before they've really worked out what they need those products to do. So when you finally stopped looking at scooters and wheelchairs and started looking at your actual day-to-day life, what did you discover you really needed?
Once I'd stopped looking at products and started looking at my day-to-day life, the answer became surprisingly obvious. I needed something that could get me from my bed to the front door. I needed something I could use inside the house. I needed something that could get me around a supermarket. I needed something I could take on public transport. And I needed something I could use independently, because I don't have the strength or stamina to self-propel a manual wheelchair. What I eventually realised was that I wasn't looking for something to help me on one journey. I was looking for something that could support me throughout the entire day. For me, that turned out to be a power chair. Not because power chairs are automatically better, and certainly not because they're right for everybody, but because it happened to match the list of things I needed it to do.
And I think that's the important point, because this isn't really a story about mobility scooters or power chairs. The lesson is that you worked out what you needed the mobility aid to do before you chose the mobility aid itself. Once you'd done that, the decision became much easier. For somebody else, the answer might be completely different. It might be a scooter. It might be a manual wheelchair. It might be a folding power chair. It might even be a combination of things. But unless you first sat down and worked out what problems you're actually trying to solve, you're really just guessing and hoping you've picked the right product.
If you're in that position right now, my advice is very simple. Before you look at a single brochure, before you watch another review video, and certainly before you spend any money, sit down with a pen and paper. Then write down everything you need that mobility aid to do. Not what you'd like it to do. Not what the salesman says it can do. What you actually need it to do in your daily life. Can you get it into your home? Can you use it indoors? Can you use it in the shops? Can you transport it? Can you use it independently? Can you charge it? Can you store it? Think about the whole day, not just one journey. Once you've got that list in front of you, then start looking at products. Because at that point, you're no longer guessing. You're comparing real solutions against a real problem.
So if somebody only remembers one thing from this video, what should it be?
Don't start with the mobility aid.
Start with the problem.
Exactly. Work out what you need it to do first.
Then compare the products against that.
That's the way round to do it.